Stellaris 4.0 is announced. This video will go through all changes announced in 4.0, from performance improvements that are literally changing pops, jobs and trade, to game pacing and lots of quality of life. There's a lot to cover, and not everything is even in this dev diary, so let's get into it. Firstly, they start with 4 feedback threads that they've been running. Go fill them out if you want to leave your feedback and shape the game in the future. They're on war and war resolution, pirates and crime, espionage, and factions and politics. So, for some time I've been hinting that the custodian team has been working on something big. So let's look at what they've been up to and what we're planning for the first half of 2025. A moment of prophecy. A long time ago, I was asked when we would move on to Stellaris 4.0. I answered, definitely not until we get to release update 3.14. I think that was just for the pie jokes. And yes, we're at 3.14. Little did I know how prophetic that joke really was. Maybe they didn't know then actually. It just lined up very nicely. Announcing 4.0. The Q2 Stellaris release, currently expected sometime around our anniversary in May, which is the 9th of May by the way, will be the Stellaris 4.0 Phoenix update. Will be released alongside our major expansion for the year. So I believe Machine Age was also around that time with that major change. Being tech, if I remember rightly. So it seems that worked well and they're doing it again. While designing the plan for Stellaris 4.0 release, the custodian team had the following major priorities. Number 1, performance improvements. Number 2, new player guidance and game pacing, and number 3, quality of life improvements. Can't argue with that. Maybe you could throw in war, but let's keep reading. As much of this is still very deep in active development, I don't have too many screenshots to show off yet, so I'll go over some of what we have planned and provide more in-depth details in future dev diaries. As they get closer to completion, some of these features will likely change as we iterate on them, and it's possible that some may end up very different from how they were described in this dev diary, be delayed, or even cut altogether. These are some of the risks of sharing plans at an early stage, but I feel the benefits outweigh any potential drawbacks. I agree, we might be disappointed if like something you really like the look of might not be in there, but I do like releasing it because we can give feedback on any issues that we might see with them. So please keep us in the loop. I like it. Performance improvements. Stellaris has many moving parts, and an incredible number of calculations are performed every month. Many of those calculations rely on others, forcing them to be performed sequentially rather than parallel. This is where my computer science degree can come in. And yes, it's very true. You can't just put stuff on multi-thread, as simple as it may seem. The entire back end would need to be rewritten and not rely on each other, and even then some things can't be parallel. But yes, sequential does cause the game to slow down as the number of calculations increases throughout the game, and is especially notable in large galaxies. More planets and empires, it means more pops filling more jobs, producing more resources with more pathfinding for the fleets and so on. Fleets, yes. Because we have so many resources now, because each DLC kind of adds more power creep, we can get really big fleets and it just lags the game. That's my main issue. The pops and job system introduced in Stellaris 2.2 Liguin have always had major performance implications in the late game, and we've been working on incremental improvements ever since. It has gotten a lot better, but yeah, I think the system might be flawed, and that's, I think, what's going to be covered. So as the Tech Pope says in this short, essentially every single pop has their own data, and every single pop is simulated every single day. So you can't just group pops, because they're all different happiness, ethics, traits, and a bunch of other modifiers. So the system's just fundamentally flawed, essentially. And that's why last year I mentioned that we were exploring a pop prototype and showed you a horrifying placeholder screenshot in the last dev diary of the year. Our initial experiments have been promising, so in the Stellaris 4.0 Phoenix update, we're changing the way pops fundamentally work. Again, oh no, I'm gonna have to reload the game. Pops will be grouped together into pop groups based on species, strata, and ethics, and these pop groups will produce workforce used to fill or partially fill jobs. Okay, so they're grouping them, so essentially the calculations will be put together rather than every single pop differently. As part of this change, we're changing the overall scale of pops. Most things that previously manipulated 1 pop would now affect or manipulate 100. Okay, I guess it's easier to do like micro min-maxy, because before 1 pop had to work 1 job, but now we could have 50 of this new system working amenities. So it's even more micro meta. Maybe. We'll see how it goes. This is just pure speculation. These changes will significantly impact other systems such as pop, growth, migration, and many others. I'll dedicate a full dev diary to more deals before the open payout. Yeah, it's going to be a new game. It's going to be a new game, pretty much. 2025 is a big year for Stellaris with 4.0 coming, and I'm being a bit ambitious myself. I'm trying to get 100k before the end of the year, which is almost doubling my subscriber count, so everyone watching, please subscribe and help me out. It's free and it's greatly appreciated. Now back to the video. Trade. The current trade system, with its constant calculations around pathing and pirate generation is another that has disproportionately high impact on performance compared to the benefit. We're simplifying that one significantly and making trade act as a standard resource. Oh my word. What? Trade will also be used to represent general logistics capability, and as such will likely become available to Gestalt empires for these logistical purposes. Again, we'll cover this in a future dev diary. So trade's a resource. That's quite cool because trade builds, you don't benefit from like plus resources, but trade and energy will exist as resources. We'll have to see more deals, but this is the new game +2. No. Additional comments. Fleets are the remaining system, as I've said every opportunity I get. I'd highlight for having a major performance impact. While 4.0 will have some general fixes, we've got our hands full with these changes, so we're expecting to focus on them in a future update. I think it's good in a way that they're not doing everything at once, because it might not need fixing. I think it will, but it might not. New player guidance and game pacing. Much of the feedback we've received from newer players indicates that Stellaris has become overwhelming in the early stage of the game, providing a flood of decisions and seemingly endless barrage of notifications. I have to agree, I started playing a Megacorp release and there was a lot going on, and now there's just even more systems in place. If you started 1.0, there wasn't much to do, which would make us players who play a lot a bit bored later on. We've done everything. There's so much to do now. Then you have the new players who have just too much. So this is good. New players is good for the game. They have trouble identifying which of these choices are important for long-term growth versus which are primarily flavor. The constant interruptions make it more difficult to form both short and long-term goals, more meaningful events. The content design team has been reviewing events and notifications to ensure that any interruptions are meaningful. Events should generally not be purely informative. You should have a choice that has an impact. Well, it's kind of like how the pre-FTL policy thing changed. A substantial number of purely informational events, such as the discovery of terraforming candidates or new strategic resources, have been converted into toasts or notifications. I like that. As an example, during your first steps to the stars, you'll find evidence that life is surprisingly common out in the galaxy, or they're simply used to have an acknowledgement, and you'll now have choices based on the nature of your empire. So we have contact rapport, simple forms of life, and instead of just acknowledging it, we have xenophile and fanatic egalitarian options, and xenophile will let us embrace the bonds of new life. We'll get the Xeno Diplomacy option tech and tech progress to it. What does that tech actually do? Let me look it up quick. So it gives you 10% diplomatic weight and the embassy complex, which I believe gives you the envoy. I mean, in terms of guiding the player, I don't think it guides them to a good tech, but it's very interesting for like tech rushing or better stuff because you can get the guaranteed options. And I'm presuming the egalitarian option is going to be different. Can't really say too much on it without knowing all the options. I guess this is pushing you in the way of being diplomatically strong. I guess that's the reason. Anomalies are a wonderful content delivery vehicle during the exploration phase, but having a window pop up on your face every time one of your science ship finds anything interesting is decidedly less wonderful. Yes, it is. It's so annoying. Moving the pop-up to a toast. You can click it or a notification to open the full anomaly window or get to it through the situation log. I really like that. I like the toasts. I like that change because it's so annoying. Certain event changes that are not particularly loved have had or will have a bit of adjustment as well. Divine Glory class battleship, radical. Is this the Cultus? Not entirely sure what's going to change. Do we get this battleship? Maybe. But I like the small tweaks to stuff. I have big Dota background and too many hours in it. That is how Ice Frog, the person who does the balance changes, operates. They do small tweaks to make things more relevant. I like it. Message settings. Speaking of toasts and notifications, the message settings system has been expanded to give you more control over how different messages should appear. Oh, so if you don't like that change, you can change it. That's really good because you can make the dig sites toast as well. Ah, that's really nice. And they're doing a part on the default settings as well. New message settings should allow you to customize notifications to suit your preferences, whether you want a pop-up that automatically pauses the game, to turn certain notifications completely off. Customizability is key. I like. Leader trait frequency. Empire leaders were cited in your feedback as feeling very needy, like they're constantly clamoring for attention to selecting traits if you own galactic paragons. We're looking at merging the first two tiers of leader traits and reducing the number of levels that you make trait selections at. This is the net effect of increasing the overall power of leaders a bit, as I start with what formerly was a tier 2 trait. And if you select a new trait at level 3 instead of upgrading their starting trait, you'll have two formerly 2-tier traits, but makes experience with them a bit smoother. Tier trait selections do put you at greater mercy of the random selection of options, so we've increased the number of options draws by 1. this should reduce some of the risk of getting a dead trait without diminishing the benefit of +1 leader trait option effects too much. There's a lot to digest here. I didn't mind the leaders. Let me know in the comments if you did, because maybe we're in the small minority here. But I think this is a good compromise. I think the meta, meta pilled, is always selecting 2 different traits then. You're going to get 2 tier 2 traits. That's very hard to say. We're going to see how this plays, but kind of like that. I like the +1 option with that change too. If it didn't have that, I wouldn't like this. Galaxy generation updates. As Stellaris has grown, so the number of pre-scripted systems. Many of these unique systems were set at extremely high weights to appear, causing most of them to appear in every game you play. Since these special systems usually contain 1 or more habitable worlds, it inflated the number of such worlds well above the expected number, especially since they did not respect the habitable world sliders from your settings. We've done a normalization pass on the weights for these systems. Many should still appear in each game, but it shouldn't try to stuff all of them in. You also now respect the habitable worlds and pre-FTL sliders from the Galaxy setup if appropriate, and should generally no longer appear in the immediate vicinity of the Empire homeworlds. This change yields general benefits to game pacing and indirectly an improvement to performance in general. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's a good change. If you don't want many habitable worlds, you won't get many now. I did notice that at 0.25x, for example, there would still be quite a lot of planets, so it's good. Empire focuses. What? wait, what? The focus trees in some of our other grand strategy games do a great job of outlining possible ways you could take your country. In Hearts of Iron, for example, you already know the general plot. Don't spoil it. I haven't read that yet. The different factions will behave as you expect until world tension reaches a certain level, after which the world descends into war. No, they've spoiled it for me. You're going to say it's the second one as well. Ugh. The differences that will occur from game to game are largely due to how the events play out. Your interference in history lets everything spiral out into an alternate resolution. The focus tree not only provides a great way to create butterflies that can change history, but are fantastic at providing new players with short and medium term goals. I highly agree. I think it's one of the reasons why EU and HOI are quite easy to get into, because you have a goal, and Stellaris is quite hard for that. We decided that static focus trees were not appropriate for Stellaris though. I agree. Our sandbox and 4x nature with mysterious universe requires any such system to be more adaptable to what's happening in this galaxy. Instead of trees, we decided to go with suggested tasks that fall into conquest, exploration, or development aspiration categories. These can range from investigating an anomaly to building a Dyson swarm, or at the highest ranks, even becoming Galactic Custodian. You'll be able to select your Empire's focus aspiration, which will skew the offered task towards your choice. I'm going to read the whole thing before I give my opinion, I think. Completing these tasks gives no immediate reward, but progresses you down conquest, exploration, and development tracks. And if you get a task you've already completed, that's fine. It'll immediately complete and you can get a new one. We don't want you to sit there waiting to build your interstellar assembly after all. Reaching certain milestones will grant abilities like Form Federation, oh my gosh, no way, which will be moving at the Diplomacy tradition, yes! Or give guaranteed research options for crucial oh my gosh, they're fixing things, oh my. Reducing your reliance on random pulls from the technology deck for techs like cruisers, colonial centralization, or mega engineering. Veteran players already know how to play the game. I don't, to be fair, and already adept at forming their own goals. We expect that you'll be completing these tasks naturally as you play. They're primarily intended to teach new players how to play like you and guarantee that you'll be able to force access to those important technologies. Okay, a lot to digest here. A, B, what? 1. Yes, they shouldn't be static. I like the idea of this, especially to help newer players have inbuilt goals. A lot of my videos, I have these custom goals, and that's when I finish, which I think if you're playing like Crusader Kings 3 or Stellaris or CK2, those are the sort of things you have to come up with, like internal goals, and that's where you get the most fun of them, or at least for me. So these help with that. The issue is the rewards could be kind of meta, like they're saying that it's stuff that we would do, but I don't like research an anomaly straight away. Will that lock me out of things? The main issue with this is if the meta shifts or if they change something like in a year, they're gonna have to update this system. So now there's loads of systems they have to keep updating that could fall behind, but I like the general idea. And if it's maintained and stuff's added into it, it's pretty good. Next up, Empire Timeline. Accessible via a new tab within the situation log, the Empire Timeline is a real-time chronicle of your Empire's journey. I literally suggested this in my video. From humble beginnings on your homeworld to the heights of galactic dominance, or the depths of enormous defeat. Ignominious? I don't actually know what that word says. The timeline will automatically document key events and milestones as they occur. That's cool. We aim for the timeline to serve as a practical ledger, allowing you to retrace the pivotal decisions and moments that have shaped your game. We also provide a rich narrative framework, transforming your gameplay into a story worth remembering. We look forward to sharing more details on the Empire timeline in a future diary. For now, we invite you to prepare your empires for prosperity, and to ensure that your name echoes across the stars. This is insane. I said about this before. The only issue is, what constitutes a key event and milestone? Will it be customizable? I just want to see a graph of my science go up as well. Like, if that's a thing, that would be cool. Or like different productions. I like graphs. Who doesn't like graphs? Good change. And this also is throwing Stellaris more and more into the roleplay narrative. I like it. Quality of life improvements. Many of the other changes also fall into quality of life improvements, but two I want to highlight in particular include improvements to the species modification process and the colonization flow. Colonizing worlds had a few quirks that were smoothing out to make for a better experience, especially if you use colony automation, which in the colony designation to a modifier that will exist for some time after initial colonization, and letting you pick the colony designation and even turn automation on when you give the colonization order. This should prevent a common situation in the mid to late game where you would colonize a planet but would have to pick and choose between using automation or losing out on amenity and stability bonuses of the default designation. The new flow also helps out automation significantly, since you won't end up in a situation where the colony is no longer a valid designation and it falls back to an auto-designated selection. I might be misunderstanding this, but essentially the colony designation would help your colony not revolt. But what I would always do is turn it into the designation I wanted it to be anyway, but I guess it would stop the automation working the colonists to give amenities because you have the bonus, so it will help in that way. I think it's an all-round plus. It can't be worse, and it just helps the way I play, so thanks. Species modification and assimilation targets. We've gone through the genetic modification process to remove many pain points and make the overall flow much smoother. Thank you. You'll also be able to set a template as the species default, and can set subspecies variants to automatically integrate over time into the species default template. What? So, what is this screenshot? Let's digest this. The species tab is generally more helpful as well. This branch does not include the pop changes. Is the caption. So we have name, traits, species, habitability. That's really good. I'm actually going to load up Stellaris and compare it because my brain. Okay, for this, we're going to have the new on top and the old on the bottom. So they flip things around. The portrait's on the right. When selected, it gives a bunch more useful information, such as the amount of pops, which we already had. Great icon. I think, judging, we can actually work it out here. It's like a puzzle. The high glare is better than the glare because it's using more positive traits picks. So it's not how many more you get, it's the cost of them. They've gotten rid of solidarity and then added another +1 in communal. Yes. So the glare has 2 available picks. That's really nice to just glance at. You can just see, oh, we can modify the Zani. We've got 2 selections, and I think the star then is how many extra picks. So the Zani, we could add 1 + 2 to it without removing anything else. You can see their rights, which we already had, till pops and variants, and then more importantly the integrating. So the glare, we can make them integrate into a default subspecies, which will automatically alter over time to match the default template. Pop integrated per colony per year is free, so instead of having to do the tech, we can just integrate them. And it says also, so you can do both. I mean, this is overall buff to genetic modification. And I mean, we got a machine age last year, so could be prepared for something, who knows. Next is the ship designer. As we did with species modification, we've gone through the ship designer to improve the general process of creating new ship designs. Here's the screenshot. Where have they clicked for this? What is this showing? So we're gonna have the old on the top and the new on the bottom. Also, the caption says, auto-generated design checkbox won't stop you from saving new ship design. Yay. You don't have to click that button every single damn time. So I think it's the ship role that this is. Yeah, it is. Okay. I've never used this, but I guess it helps newer players. All right. That's what we care about here. And the checkbox is for us older players. Nice quality of life. I mean, the game is so advanced and it's got so much going on. I think these quality of life changes are going to be huge. And in the next few weeks, there's a lot more going on with this update. I'm hoping to challenge Lem for the patch note crown. Oh no. I mean, that's also good. Next week, we'll go into more detail about some of the changes coming in Stellaris 4.0 Phoenix update that are possible to show. I mean, some things I didn't go into above, like precursor selection and the Stellaris data bank. See you then. This is looking extremely positive. We also have had mention of a beta, so we're going to be able to test these features and give more feedback, which is really good. Overall, this is such a positive direction. As you may have known, this is new for me to go through the patch changes. Let me know if you enjoy it, or I should just stick to playing the game. If you enjoyed it a lot and you're not subscribed, subscribe, and we'll go through next week's changes. And this is basically the Stellaris Hub channel right now. We're not EP30, we are EP Stellaris. So subscribe. So much Stellaris content here. Just like my achievement series where I get all the achievements, and with these updates, they're gonna add more for me to get. Click here to watch every single achievement that I've gotten so far, all 180 of them. Click it now.